Thanks, everyone, for being here. I'm Emily Gould. I'm the editorial director of 29th Street Publishing. This gentleman to my right is David Jacobs. He is the CEO and founder of 29th Street, which has been around for 2 years now. We make mobile magazines. And I initially encountered 29th Street Publishing as a client of 29th Street, and I still am. So far, so good. Before I became their editorial director, I actually was last in this room presenting about my publishing startup, Emily Books, which is an ebook of the month club that both brings out-of-print books back into print as ebooks and also selects newly published books and just sends them to our subscribers once a month. And now we are able to do that. Before we were just doing it via an email file that our subscribers could download, and now we're also doing that as an iOS app. And soon we'll be doing it as a web app. So to backtrack a little bit, what 29th Street does is eliminates the barrier to entry for existing websites and magazines that want to have a subscribable mobile experience for their readers, but also enables publishers who are writers who may have just an idea for a startup magazine to start their magazine, whether they have a whole staff and a lot of capital and a lot of resources, as so many writers do these days, or more likely a project that is more blog-like or zine-like. David's background, well, I can let David tell you about his own background, but David is largely responsible for the infrastructure of blogs and how they have evolved over the last 10 years, and he feels some regret about how things have shaken out for the I guess we used to be called writers, but now we're mostly called content creators. And if there are any content creators in this room, you know what I'm talking about. One of the things that I noticed that made me interested in working with 29th Street is that it's actually relatively easy if you have a group of dedicated friends and a brilliant idea to get together and start a print magazine these days. I know a ton of brilliant, relatively young print magazines that have sprung up in the last 10, 5 to 3 years with beautiful design and halfway decent distribution. It's a lot harder to get people to pay you money to subscribe to your online publication. There really is no existing infrastructure that creates that. But there is now, and there has been for the last 2 years. So we've launched 30 magazines. The most recent one was last week, Radio Silence, which is a not-for-profit magazine out of the Bay Area that is about music and pop culture and everything around music, interviews with musicians. The one before that was Scratch magazine, which if you are interested in all of the sort of financial underpinnings of the future of publishing and writing as an industry, is a great one to subscribe to because it's a trade magazine about how writers actually make money. And it exists both as an iOS app and on the web. We also work with much more established brands, like none of them are on the screen right now, but Harper's. We relaunched Harper's, and we're working with London Review of Books, ProPublica. So we have the big guys, and then we have the medium-sized guys, and then we have the little tiny guys. And I'll let David show you some slides and have a turn at the mic for a second, but that's the editorial part.
Thanks, Emily.
Sure.
Yeah, so as Emily said, I started actually the first totally blogging-focused company in New York in 2004 called Apperceptive, which then sold to Six Apart in 2008 and then became Say Media in 2010. And basically the arc of publishing tools over that time went from we were building tools for startups like we built the first version of Huffington Post into like 2010, Say Media is a company that basically builds conversational ad products. And I love Rebel Mouse, great company, but sometimes I would love to see some content that doesn't written or funded totally by brands. I think the connection between the publisher and the audience is really important, and we lost it at some point. And blogging definitely set the expectation to the world that reading is something that should be free. And so that's what we're trying to sort of unlearn a little bit. The keynote didn't come over, but this would have been an amazing slide of all of the covers and anvil effect. You guys know the anvil effect from keynote, but it's amazing. But we do so you miss it. But Emily mentioned, like folks like Harper's Magazine, Poetry Magazine, Mora Magazine is a startup. The All is a web startup here in New York City that's a few years old. But you guys know, if you're in the web business at any level, like you're in that zone between 2 million and 10 million uniques. Even with like great new companies, you very often, the cost of your business is going up faster than the revenue coming in. And so we're trying to create sort of alternate revenue streams, and some of them are ad products and some of them are subscriptions. I love this Zelda slide, if you remember Zelda. But this is really how I think of us in the publishing digital tools world. Like, this is the first screen of Zelda. You get the first wooden sword. It can barely like strike a small creature. But when we talk about like mobile, and we're all focused on mobile all the time, like the App Store is like less than 5 years old. And so like when you think about like magazines and the printed word, how far behind we are. We're really like 1-2% of the way where we have to be. And a great example of this attitude is like here. This is the game Dots. This is by BetaWorks, which is one of like great publishing companies in New York. Far and away, before Flappy Birds, there was Dots. This is a video game made by a publishing company, and is far and away the most popular thing downloaded on a mobile device. And I think Dots is fun, but it also is like a little bit of a failing of content creators. Like we used to use technology to deliver writing and content and sell it, and now here we have like our great publishing company. Their hit is also a video game. It's a little sad. But when you look at these magazines, this is like these are like some magazines we love. And the Howler, who will be up later, they're just here to the left, just next to Fantastic Man. But you didn't make the crop. You see these magazines come from all shapes and sizes, and so many magazine apps and iPhone apps now, they're basically the exact same. They're either like you take a photo of the magazine page and then make it a gallery in the app, or it's like, something like Flipboard or OnSwipe, which are like really cool products, but they're not really magazines. They're basically like evolved web browsers, which is really cool as well. But it's just not a mobile native magazine.
So show them our thing. Skip
Yeah.
the next few slides.
So this, real quick, one of the things when we talk with publishers all the time, they act like they've lost control of design, they've lost control of type. And one of Emily Books' first books on our platform was this book called I'm Trying to Reach You by Barbara Browning. And it had like all these videos that had to be integrated, and we had to do some work. But the other thing, the press, $2 Radio in Chicago, they set all their books in Garamond because Garamond is the best font. And one of their biggest concerns was like, well, how could we possibly use Garamond? And then when you buy from Amazon or from Apple or any of the other ebook retailers, or downloaded the ebook, and even in Readmill, you'd end up with like, this is actually in the end plate of the book. Obviously not Garamond. And it's like just the very basic fundamentals of design publishers have been trained to compromise on. We'll split it. But basically, like, we talk about blogging and content strategy, like, was wonderful for the boom of writers. But the reality is that, we basically reduced all content into a title and body. So this is our product called Pico. This is like basically when writers work with us, they get the app and they get a website as well. I'll bring up the web in a second. And you get this CMS, but we also take care of all the analytics, all the delivery, all the sales, all the customer management, sending notifications to phones when there's a new issue. We've basically rebuilt everything in the publishing industry as API, as software that we can then, give you to sort of edit on top of. And so this is, basically what you might see in a basic screen, like your covers on the left, sort of table of contents, and then a publish button. And then, articles on the right. And when you publish at once to native apps and the web. We don't see like, this is like not like an apps versus webs world or a print versus digital world. Like if you're a publisher, you're a writer, you need to be like in print and on the web and in mobile all at once. That's very important to us. So that's it. Thanks.
Questions? Yes.
We've solved
Also,
it.
if you could
No-
introduce
no
yourself, I
questions.
forgot to mention that earlier. If you could just introduce yourself.
Hi, Clarissa. I don't think I quite heard the cost of this.
Yeah, it's basically, it's a $1,000 upfront for like the basic app, and then $1 per subscriber a year. So we basically try to price it so that if you have 80 subscribers, at a $20 annual fee, you'll break even. So like the sort of like, the $1,000 is largely arbitrary, except like if you come and you're like, well, I'd really love you to build an app. It's basically like, if you're gonna have 80, you have to have 80 subscribers, to be sustainable, to break even. That obviously doesn't pay for your time.
When we, I don't think this is even on anymore. Oh, no, it is. Okay. When we first started, we had a revenue share model with some of our smaller clients, and we found that didn't work because if you don't get people to have some skin in the game up front, they just will never actually make their magazine. So the $1,000 was a more recent evolution for us, and so far so good actually.
Yeah, these guys were one of the new model clients, and Apple tweeted this yesterday. The App Store account had 2.5 million followers. So, like, it's great, to see folks like with minimal upfront investment get a payoff because it's a very new space still.
So when you create it, does your business automatically put it in the Apple Store and all that jazz and stuff?
Yeah, we help you with that.
Okay.
Hi, Katarina. So you essentially create an app for a magazine? Okay, so there isn't any sort of centralized marketplace where you can just go through all your magazines or some sort of community help?
Yeah, we've thought about that. I mean, the issue is like a lot of people, when the online world exploded, everyone was like, magazines is moving online, content is moving online. What happened was like audiences moved online, right? But like people still buy like shoes and food and pizza and microphones, And so it's like we're not obsessed with like owning your community or owning this community screen. Like Twitter and Facebook, like you guys will see Howler in a little bit. Like Howler has an amazing community of people who are obsessed with them on Twitter. So it doesn't make sense for us to have a community product. They have a community product. Maybe they have a Rebel Mouse page. You know what I mean? Like there's all sorts of wonderful, that's not us. We do like reading and writing.
Yeah. What sort of are you guys tracking data on how people are using, and
Yeah.
is that part of your model?
Obsessively.
Obsessively.
All of it.
And is that part of the package that the publisher, the author, or the
Yes.
gets back?
Yeah, of course. We have an open source library. It's called StarWatch. Most just like reading apps, like mobile analytics. If you're in the programming world, basically like they took web analytics and they put it on mobile. But there's no page view on mobile. There's no all these metaphors are, first of all, they're broken on the web because of blogging. You know what I mean? And then on mobile, they just make absolutely no sense. So what we actually do is we anonymously track user sessions through the app, and we look at are you swiping? Are you using the table of contents? We're looking more for how do we improve the experience, and when and where are people reading in aggregate? It's a little less important.
I mean, the fundamental, though some of our apps do sell ads, like Harper's, obviously, it sells, ads through their app. Primarily at this point, our apps are supported by their subscriptions. So an easy rubric of the success of the app is how many people are paying to read it. And the data on that end is very cheering because it turns out that, the example that I always cite is The All. The All's has a weekly companion, and if you don't have time to read all of the content that the All churns out on a day-to-day, but you just want the 4 hand-picked things that the editors of the All think are the absolute best and the must-reads of the week, it turns out that people will actually pay to subscribe to something that they could curate themselves by putting it in Pocket or Instapaper or read for free online. Like, curation actually has a monetary value associated with it, which is learning that was the most optimistic thing that I had heard anyone say in the context of a conversation about digital publishing in many years. So, question.
2 questions for you, actually. Do you develop the applications under your Apple developer license, or does each magazine have a separate license? And if so, if you develop under your license, what happens? What's like the migration plan? Like if someone wants to move their magazine to host it on their own, you know, when they grow bigger or something like that, what would you do about that? And also, does the upfront fee, does it cover the design cost as well? Those are my 2 questions. I know that was a lot. Sorry.
No, excellent questions.
You can have it in your account or our account, and you know, some people they just don't want to deal with Apple, and we host the websites, you know, which is obviously an easier migration issue. But if you want to move your account, you know, Apple has a mechanism to transfer ownership of apps. It's a web form. It's very straightforward. In terms of the design, like for the sort of like we call the starter licensing, the $1,000 level, there's basically a set of templates and, you know, color and type and logos and covers. You know, like a lot of design is actually not like require programming. Like again, like you look at Rebel Mouse, these pages all look very different, but they're actually similar templates, right? So we've been working very hard on templates like that.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Excellent. Awesome.